Hi there, it's John again with Capco Canvas, and today I'm going to show you how to basically learn how to sew. Learning how to sew isn't just learning how to operate the machine. What you have to learn how to do is control the machine. Control the treadle, control your speeds, control your turns. Whether you're making clothing or canvas, full enclosures, boats, anything that has to do with sewing, you have to be proficient at the machine. Otherwise your projects don't come out properly. This method that I'm going to show you is very simple to do, and it's easy to practice. Anybody, if you have a sewing machine, you can take a few minutes every day to do this, to get yourself down to where that your stitch lines are going to come out straight and that your curves are going to come out straight, and it's just an easy way to practice sewing. I've taught many people how to sew, and this particular method that I'm going to show you is proved to be it's proved to work. It actually gives you the control of steering the material, and it gives you the control of the treadle. So let's get a close up and I'll show you exactly how I do it, and it's going to make you a better seamster, seamstress, mechanic, whatever you want to call yourselves. So let me get a close up and we'll get going on this. Okay, this is just a scrap piece of paper or piece of fabric, and what I want you to do is just take a contrasting pencil or pen, whatever you've got, and just draw. And first one we're going to do is start going square, just like this. Now I don't want you to use a ruler here, because actually these curved squiggly lines, that is going to make you proficient, because when we sew on this, I want you to stay on these lines. So don't use a ruler to get it all straight, because you're not going to get the use of the control. So once you have this pattern drawn out, let's go to the machine and I'll show you how to sew it. Alright, I'm also using a white thread here on black fabric so that I can see where I'm going. So just start at the top, and you can practice your back tacking. And now what we're going to do is just take it really slow, and this particular machine has a knee lift down here, so I can lift and lower the foot of the machine. If you don't, you have the levers up here, it works the exact same way. I'm going to use the knee lift to show how to go through these turns. But what you want to do is with your treadle, I want you to be able to go really slow and ultimately speed this thing up, but staying exactly on that line. Now I'm using my left hand here to steer the project. A lot of times with bigger stuff, you'll use the two hands, but primarily your left hand is what's going to control, what's going on. Your right hand is usually going to be holding stuff together, but you're still driving it with your left hand. So once you get to a corner, I wouldn't even call it a cheater way to do it, but I'll actually roll my machine over by hand to get it exactly on the spot. Turn your project over. Now, the other thing here is I guess I didn't even realize it. I'll use my right hand as kind of a guide to guide the material. And then when I get to my spot, I'll stop, roll it over to where I'm exactly at, and then now follow the line that you drew. Go absolutely as slow as you need to stay right on that line. Sometimes you'll take a couple of stitches, but you can see here that I'm getting exactly right on my line. Now if you just do this, and I can tell you that practicing going slow is very proficient. If you can slow the machine down just before you get to a turn, you don't have to wheel as many times. But this is what's happening. When you start making when you do this design, you're getting into shorter and shorter bites. And the smaller you can make this and the short bite that you can get, the better you're going to get in sewing. That's it. That's doing a square method. What I also want you to practice doing is doing a circle method. Take the exact same scrap and then start doing circles like that. That's gonna, well, I hit the table and messed that up, but nice and steady and smooth, and all you're doing is just making this curve. You're sewing right on that line. Now that it's getting tighter, I'm going to slow the machine down. I got, that was, see? Should have slowed it down even more. So you can see that there's there's a couple of spots here that I was off, and I've been doing this for 25 years. I can tell you that sewing on a line is absolutely the best way to practice sewing, because everything that you sew is going to be on a line. You're going to take seam allowance out, you're going to be sewing two pieces together, you're going to be coming around a curve. There's just endless amounts of lines that you're sewing on. So practicing sewing on lines is great. Let me show you another thing. Okay, here's what I did. I just took a piece of scrap and I just cut out a little circle, okay? Now, a lot of times you're going to be sewing round stuff to straight stuff. I always recommend, if all possible, to put your curve on the top versus putting your curve piece on the bottom and your straight piece on top. I think it's easier to control it if you have the curved piece on the top so that you can see it better. So just bite off a seam allowance. Like everybody knows, I like a 3/8 inch seam allowance. But all I'm going to do is just take this and I'm going to sew it as a and now the meaning to my madness here is not to show you that we can sew a big curve in this thing. The objective is to practice getting the edges lined up so that you're biting off the same amount of seam allowance on both sides. So, and that's control with the machine. If you're not proficient with controlling the treadle of the machine, and this piece goes, way out, your project's not going to fit properly. So it's just a way to sit and just play with the sewing machine. So you can move that out of the way. The other thing that you can do is you can take this stuff and very simply just cut some strips out of it and practice sewing and top stitching. All canvas products are going to be made with a stitch to sew the two pieces together and then a top stitch. So when I fold this over, and I'm going to fold the seam allowance over on one side so that it's nice and flat. And here again, this is where, when I'm top stitching this, once again, I'm following a line. So that goes back to the practicing sewing on line. I'm using this line right here as a guide in between my toes to keep the machine straight. So you can just do this countless times, just over and over. You take another strip, and keep in mind, you're not making anything here, so it doesn't have to be beautiful. You're just practicing sewing and getting it straight. I'm using my right hand as kind of a template or a guide. And the other thing you can do is you can use marks on your machine as the guides as well. I use my fingers most of the time. I'm just letting the fabric just run right next to my finger. And then I get a pretty consistent seam allowance. When you have a drawn out seam allowance, you'll be, once again, sewing on a line. So flip it over, get your seam so that it's folding over the proper way, and sew. So that's it. That's what I want you to do, is just sew and try to get proficient at your seams. You can see that these two seams are parallel each other all the way down here. That's going to make your projects come out a lot better once you learn how to control the sewing machine.
So that's basically it. Take the time. It seems like it may be a little bit silly, but just like anything, you have to practice to get proficient at it. If you're playing a musical instrument, you have to practice. If you're sewing, you have to practice. So draw those lines out and practice, 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 and you'll get way better. Not only when I say better, I'm talking about faster, smoother, everything. All of your projects are going to come out a lot better if you learn how to control the tempo of the sewing machine. Good luck.